Well, we're back for another Animorphs review, and this
Sounds
would
like
be the Andalite Chronicles and number 14, right?
the unknown, yes. There's a lot to unpack about this. You finally know that Tobias is Alfangor's son.
That was a surprise, to be sure.
I don't know if it was something they planned from the start. He did get that weird scene in book one where he had this weird thing going on with Elfangor, so probably did plan it from the start.
That makes sense looking back.
Now, I
So,
don't know. You could infer the fact that he's just loves the unreal and the weird and unnatural because of how bad his life has been messed up.
so
I just
anything
have
exciting or
images.
spontaneous he'd be drawn to.
Yeah, which actually does fit in with this character. You don't know. I'm going to avoid spoilers like the plague tonight, so I won't say too much. But Tobias has a knack of just sort of jumping on any old bandwagon he sees.
And, honestly, it makes me love Tobias even more.
He's very susceptible to peer pressure or fads or anything like that.
Yeah, it's if the series had kept in KA's control, I wonder what she would have made of like this unique parallel we have. Like it seems to be saying something about values assigned. Tobias is the son of one of the heroes, and he's a bit more emotional and moralistic, whereas Marco is more ruthless. So he gets relative on the side of the bad guys. Papa talked about that, but didn't really go anywhere.
Are you talking about in this book?
I'm talking about in the whole series.
You're spoilering. You got to stop spoilering, or else
Yeah.
you're off Santa's nice list, straight onto the naughty list.
Well, it goes some places, but I won't say what.
Okay, I'll get one of my problems with this book out of the way. It's just they just made Chapman so blatantly evil. Just like
Yes,
I did not like that. Like
that is the worst. Well, no, it's the second worst aspect of the Andalite Chronicles. They did completely butcher his character, and needlessly so. I think the only reason they did it was
he's a
because
bad guy later on. Oh, we gotta make him evil and unlikable when he was younger. It's like no, they don't.
No,
it's like. Is there any character in a movie that has like a major redemption arc that you can think of?
In a TV show, I can think of Jakar.
Jafar?
Jakar from Babylon 5.
That's a really good example because he did some kind of unlikable things, but then later on, he changed.
Characters with redemption arcs usually have they show some level of redeemable quality, and then they get redeemed. But Chapman from Andalite Chronicles is basically...
They just make it too heavy-handed, like, oh yeah, he's bad because he's bad. Whoa.
I mean, even after being taken over by a Yeerk, he hasn't learned. He's the reason the Yeerks know about Earth in the first place.
Yeah, he completely fucked everyone.
It's almost
I imagine what they should have done is they could have had him be tricked and be like, oh yeah, I'm an idiot.
Yeah, but
they could have done something like that.
It retroactively makes you cheer for his enslavement because, you get what was coming to you, which is not a good thing. There's also, with some minor tweaks of Papa was right, you could totally replace it with Chapman. He doesn't even have to betray anyone. They did say in the book that the ship was in passive mode, but it still might be picked up. Yeerks could do that. They could track her down. They infest Lorne. They discover it. Boom. And, even when the scene where where 7 takes over a Lorne, that could be done where Lauren could still be knocked out, and he just has figured it out. So you don't need 2 shots against Lauren and Chapman. You just have 1 against Sylvester 7. So, it requires very minimal effort to keep the flow of this. You know what I mean?
And Adam, what was your other problem with the book?
I'll let you have a guess.
Was it the living asteroids that eat spaceships?
Yes, and their sudden mysterious disappearance.
To be honest, I actually thought those were cool.
Yeah, but I think you're talking about the sloppy transition from.
It wasn't just sloppy; it was completely baffling how it got through editing.
Yes, I know, right? But then something in number 34, the prophecy, gets through editing. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not saying what it is, but you know what I'm talking about. And it's even the property says it's and the black hole. Oh, sorry, did I mention the black hole? Yeah, neither did the book. Just suddenly, bam! There's a black hole, and everyone acts like it has always been there.
It's like if what's his name, Game of Thrones writer, freaking Tolkien. No,
J.J.R. Martin.
That's the one, Martin. Yeah, if he finished the first Ice and Fire book, and you had I don't know, Joffrey as king. That's not saying that's how it goes, but I'm just example. And then the next book starts, and I don't know, freaking Brienne of Tarth is queen. It's like, no, how do you get from one state of affairs to the other? It's even worse than that because there's no time difference. It literally starts the moment after, and suddenly the asteroids are gone, and they're suddenly falling into a black hole.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
It makes no sense.
The transition, I can agree on that.
Remember, these were 3 books built into one originally.
But still, that's not a good excuse for a professional series. It's terrible.
If it wasn't for the fact that we know Elfangor goes to Earth and he marries Lauren and he learns about human things for 3 years, I would be more angry that he's talking about human terms, like comparing things to steel. Axe does that, and I think that's a mistake. But he did go to Earth, so he learned about it. There's no reason that Arbron should be so sarcastic because Androids are shown not to be sarcastic.
There are a few. Yes, the thing I don't like about the Andalite Chronicles is how flagrantly it abuses its freaking artistic license or whatever. They just write whatever the hell they want without thinking things through.
Now let's go over some.
There are some parts where it contradicts what's happened in previous books, like say when Axe would say, "Oh, these books, they're so advanced, they're better than computers," and then in the Andalite Chronicles, Elfangor saying, "Oh, these books are so primitive." It's like, no, hold on.
Axe was saying that books
what is it?
High tech, and Elfangor, is the one who does that. He also meets with Steve Jobs and Bill Gates.
Why you didn't shoot them? Well, Steve Jobs is all right. Bill Gates is a troublesome.
Let's talk about some of the positives. Like we learned there's an actual tax on resistance against the Yeerks.
And then, then he comes down to Earth and tells the Animorphs that the Taxons are basically pure evil.
Yep.
So once again, I'm just left scratching my head, thinking, have they not read their own series? What is this? I'm going to rant and rave about this book in a negative way because
I did really like that see why people like hive thing.
Yeah, I mean, from a pure spectacle point of view, yeah, it's great, but that's what all that the Andalite Chronicles is to me. They've got the classic scene of Elfangor driving was it Mustang?
Yeah, it was
across the Taxon planet drinking Dot's Pepper. Yeah, it looks cool visually. It'd make a good poster, but is it actually good plot?
and
No.
listening and give me the honky tonk blues.
No, I like a good plot, and a good plot Andalite Chronicles doesn't make, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's almost like the Chronicles books have to supplant what came before and take a higher priority on a tier list, so that what happens then has to before it has to be ignored. What happens after has to be like retroactively deemed what actually happened.
Well,
Like the
the
hierarchy of canon. But
the Hork-Bajir Chronicles doesn't have these problems that the Andalite Chronicles has. The Hork-Bajir Chronicles doesn't contradict the series, as far as I remember.
Since we're speaking of retcons, they've retconned Visser 3 into becoming a personal enemy for Elfangor.
I remember Raptor. I don't know if you know old school Raptor. I do stuff with him, but he was commenting the other day on the Animorphs Discord, saying how he didn't like how it made the series feel smaller when the Chronicles books always made the main characters meet up and be like really intertwined with each other.
Well, a good way you described it, how they make it feel smaller, is they have Chapman involved. Lauren is interesting concept, especially with what they're going to do with Elfangor and Lauren.
I wonder how Lauren, when she returned back, how she explained how she was older.
She was cringe. I'm sorry.
I didn't mind her. It's just Chapman I didn't like at all.
I do like the reference to Star Trek, though. That old TV show just on reruns she talks about. And I like the Skritna. I think the Skritna are interesting.
I really did like the Skritna, too.
Yeah, I will say, I'm going to be positive now. The first third, so Elfangor's journey. I think that's the first part.
Yes, Elfangor's journey.
That's
Lauren's choice, and an alien dies.
Yeah, so the first part is quite fun. I really like the first part, and it introduced a lot of sci-fi stuff, and it's a lot better than the prologue for book 8, for example, which I thought was very, very cheesy. I thought the first part of this book did it really well.
And don't forget the fact that they show us what it's like to actually be a taxon.
Yeah, I was really sad when he got stuck in that body.
When Arbron became a taxon Nothler.
Yeah, and he just laid there and wanted to give up at one point.
I could say something negative here, but I've already given too much negativity.
What did you think of that weird world that got created from touching that device?
The composite universe.
Interesting. I think it's an interesting sci-fi concept.
I love weird, wacky stuff like that.
I just am of the opinion that the human that Lauren got with eventually in the end is that pimply guy whose eye she removed in that alternate universe. Without Elfangor, that's who she's with. I just like to imagine it. It's funny.
Those Mortrons are freaking annoying. Those Mortrons were interesting.
Oh, those living razor blade things that fly.
With wheels.
Oh yeah, the wheels is what they have.
Aliens with wheels. I do like that.
Wheels.
Someone did a picture of that. I think it was Magic Man who did a lot of Animorphs alien art. I think he did a pretty good job of drawing.
I do believe my friend here showed me that.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, because that's the name sounded familiar with regards to the art and all that.
Yeah, he does some cracking art, but he hasn't done the Largans yet. I'm disappointed. That well-known alien race from the series.
I do like seeing Visser 3's origin story, at least. And it brings up what Lauren did in the Hork-Bajir Planet. And it talks about some of the theory's best themes is good guys doing bad things and bad guys who are kind of not as bad as they've been made out to be. And that ambiguous morality in shades of gray.
Yeah, Animorphs tends to do that well. Sometimes it doesn't, but then it's a young adult series, and so it's got to have some black and white elements like Visser 3.
Yeah.
Or...
And...
I mean, is there any, like, perfectly good. I mean, the Hork-Bajir are probably the closest you come to purely good in
Yeah.
the series.
Yep.
But even they get made into enemy finger freaking what? I'm doing a finger action thing. Yeah, but even though they're the most purest good guys, they're the enemy throughout the series, which is interesting.
You know, there is a minor, you know, what your problems with this book are. Sounds like, you know, nitpicking, which I can understand. Chalk them up to being Cassus. Catherine Applegate screwed up. You know, like Lauren, Alfengar mentions the quantum virus takes weeks to kill, whereas in the Hork-Bajir Chronicles, since we already know what happened, it shows that death is going to happen within minutes. I'm like, no.
I think later down the line, I think there was another quote somewhere which clarified that it takes quite a fair amount of time.
Yeah, so it's just any series is going to have continuity storms. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's spoiler alert. We can't be doing that shit.
Like,
Any other stuff about Andalite Chronicles? I don't want to be Mr. Negative for the rest of the show.
there is an example of good inter-series continuity between the three books, where Chapman describes how humans eat food, and Alfengar remarks that he later learned the truth, which is kind of wild when you realize that Lauren, in this composite universe, Lauren went to a McDonald's, and he explained it there. You know, to kind of balance out the bad continuity of the black hole. So, final thoughts and recommendations for Iron's audience. Your final thoughts, Adam?
On the Andalite Chronicles, I think my thoughts have been made pretty clear. There are some elements which are nice and interesting in a sci-fi sense, but the plot to the Andalite Chronicles is subpar. And I don't mean that lightly. It is pretty dreadful, and some of the stuff that got through editing was shocking. But there are still some good elements, some good stuff to take from it.
I overall enjoyed it myself.
So, your final thoughts, Iron?
Oh, you go, dude. I pretty much said my final thoughts.
I'm trying to think what else we haven't covered. Like, you know, Alfengar says it's the early 80s, even though this starts in 1975. So it should be 1978, but that's the beauty of the Time Makers, is that it's like warping time so that things slow down and speed up and events are rearranged. So it's, you know, kind of...
Yeah, that you can... That works, I guess.
Yeah.
Right then. Let's delve into the unknown, shall we?
Yeah.
Was this the one we just read?
Yeah. The one with the horse controllers.
Oh boy, I actually really didn't like this one.
Why?
Well, I mean, there's elements I liked. You know, the military stuff kind of reminded me of SG-1 a little bit.
Or Captain Torelli.
But it's just kind of like they go on this epic mission only for it to be basically an alien toilet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They wasted all that time doing that.
I've always found these toilet gags to be a bit lowbrow, which is probably why I consider Number 12 The Reaction a better fluff piece. But, you know, I could have liked this book if actually the Animorphs had done what they said at the end and informed Captain Torelli what it is that they're guarding. And while you're at it, tell them about the Yerks. Tell them about it, and you have military allies that could be brought in, like the Key and the Free Hork-Bajir. You know, they could have been allies, and that would have been interesting. You know, it's just like serve a role there. You know what I mean? And
yeah, it would have been for an interesting dynamic down, you know, later down the road.
Yep. Speaking of the military, why don't they have security cameras at Zone 91? They should see them morph and talk privately.
Because it's the 90s. This was before 9/11.
Yeah, but you think a military would... I know they were like at the lowest DEFCON alert, which was DEFCON 4 or whatever. But still, the Cold War was just 10 years before.
Oh, I can't remember like the minute details of where they were. I think they were mostly outside, hiding behind rocks, weren't they?
Yes.
So you can't have you won't have cameras like looking
Yeah,
away.
but they took them in the base and took them into a questioning room, interrogation chamber.
Yeah, I remember that.
I mean, it's the same problem you run into with the Yerk pool. The Yerks have access to human technology, and they use it, and they're every bit as paranoid as a good armed military should be. Why don't they have security cameras in the Yerk pool? Why?
Because.
Yes.
Yeah, that's,
Yes,
that's
okay.
a good question, dude.
Okay. Well, they did have hunter robots when they wanted them, but no. Spoiler. No,
Yeah, well, it's
don't
kind
talk these things.
and it's generic enough that, yeah. But anyway, I was gonna say, I will say, I like this book in more of what it could have been instead of what it is. I like this idea that they could use their money to win the Kentucky Derby and build up a war fund, like a treasury of funds that they need whenever they need to do Animorph stuff. You know, just
But they're like, oh yeah, we got to just be completely goody two shoes.
Oh, I remember the horse bit. One of the best quotes of the series comes in that bit, by the way. Someday, all
I did like the
horses will
horse
be
shenanigans.
what was it? Someday,
All
someday.
horses will be blue.
Yes, yes. The blue horses are taking over.
Now, the best thing about this book is it knows that it's filler, and it's actually quite funny. I got a laugh out of this book, and after book 13 and coming up to some heavy hitters soon, it's the right time in the series where you have your occasional jokey ha book.
It's also, to be a little bit positive. It's also the characters are consistent in themselves. Like Cassie misunderstands military time, which I know easily enough. It was supposed to be 1900 hours. She thought that's 9 o'clock. No, it's 7 o'clock.
Yeah, there's little details like that. It was very good, very well written.
I did like that because it shows they're not perfect.
Yeah, and the chase through the gardens at the end. Imagine if they had cell phone cameras these days. Granted, they thought they were still part of the show, so that might hold up, but
I always remember the Captain Torelli chase when he falls into the freaking log flume. I just really like that scene. I don't know why. It was just fun antics, and yeah, and it didn't ruin Chapman like another book we've discussed.
I do like where they're in the haunted house, right? Mr. 3 is planning to infest Captain Torelli there to find out what it is, and
that was actually pretty entertaining.
And he says, "Why aren't you scared by this?" They're like, we're jaded." Yes.
What else? Not much really happened in this book. There was the part where they're just sort of hanging around as horses, and then Visifree starts killing. He kills a horse. He chops a horse's head off, which was quite like, oh, blimey. The horse explodes at the start of the book.
It is fascinating to see Visser 3 blame a subordinate for their own death when he's the one who killed them. Totally.
Yes, that does. Yes.
Do you remember Crazy Helen?
I did like Crazy Helen.
Oh, this book is so memorable. I need to properly read it again.
And there is good continuity, like the fact that she mentions that her dad got a new truck when the old one was blown up for the chase against the Vilek in Megamorphs #1.
Velik.
Yeah.
A bit of trivia for you. What does Velik mean?
Vilek. Oh, I don't know.
It means pet in the Yerkish language. I found that out the other day.
I think Dapson means fuck or shit or something. I don't know.
Daps. Oh yeah, they never tell us, but it's sort of. We know that it's a naughty word. It's a sweary word.
Yeah.
So this book just had quite a lot of memorable moments, and it just thinking about it makes me chuckle.
There is now we're starting to see connections more to the Andalite Chronicles. Like they mentioned Galard, which is like Interlac on Babylon 5. It's a universal standard for languages when you encounter a new race, and stuff like that, in absence of universal translators, which is show already.
Basically, it's basically English, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's kind of weird that they have this when we already have universal translators, but they do mention Galard, and Tobias. They mentioned the fact that Axe and Tobias don't have Seagulmorphs, and this brings up an issue that Popper brought up that I'm going to bring up too. And they don't do much off-screen morphing. I get they wanted the readers to follow along and have like a mascot for each book, but at the same time, there's no reason Axe shouldn't have a Seagulmorph or Tobias.
Nah, he needs a Seagulmorph.
Yeah.
So I'm interested, Iron. What else did you not like about this book?
Let me think.
Can't be that obvious then.
How about Cassie's parents disciplining Cassie?
How did they discipline her again?
And they decided to humiliate her.
Oh yeah, because they knew she liked Jake, and they're like, ooh.
And they say she's too young to date. I'm like, what? She's 14. Why is she too young?
I don't even remember this scene.
Yeah, it's where she makes the connection between her Visitor 3 and her parents said, go figure.
That's the one scene I seem to have forgotten from that book.
One thing I will admit is I really like showing how smart Marco is. Granted, you see how mature he is too, the horse patties, but at the same time, you see how smart he is because he knows that they were found without shoes, without much clothes, just skin-tight stuff, and brushes, and that there was no car coming up the road, which makes the military suspicious. So he deliberately antagonizes Captain Troy while Cassie and Rachel just try and be sensible. So he just wants them to write him off as deluded wackos, which is actually pretty brilliant. It shows Marco's nature as like a strategist.
I think you mentioned it earlier, but the characters in this one are pretty spot on. It's one of those books where it's absolutely nailed.
Very consistent.
Yeah.
And it is funny. I'll make the joke where they give fake names. It's pretty funny. Like Cassie gives the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They give other fake numbers. And they name.
I do like they give themselves names from TV show.
Fox Mulder, Dana Scully, and Cindy Crawford.
Yeah. X-Files. Very good.
Yeah, X-Files. That was it.
And then Captain Troy repeats at the end, saying he was vandalized by the three of them. And the media's like, what?
Captain Torelli, what a silly bugger. Doesn't even know the X-Files. I do wonder what they'd change it to today if they'd done those reissues. Probably just Star Trek characters.
Oh, no. There's Disney Plus shows with Star Wars, The Mandalorian, or whatever. I think they'd also might make it The Expanse. That's a recent sci-fi show I hear about, or The Orville.
Yeah, they'll either do that, or they might even do Stranger Things too.
But think about what with the 2011 reprints. Think about what was on at the time. Stargate had just ended, so they probably would have mentioned Stargate, I think. But I don't know what else they could mention. I mean, Star Trek is kind of fading. There was just that movie, and Enterprise wasn't received that well, kind of burned out.
They still had South Park, so still have all the South Park references everywhere.
They still had The Simpsons back then too. So still due to this guy this day.
Yeah, I do. Do you not find it strange that there was so many South Park references? You must have noticed them.
Well, I don't think there's been one yet. I think the first one was in number 22, The Solution.
There are a few references to South Park throughout the series.
Yeah.
I do find it strange because typically it's for 18 plus, isn't it? I'm not sure it's rated in America. Over here.
So at this point, since we have like 10 minutes left and not much to say, I'm going into a new segment of the show that I will call Controlled Spoilers. Basically tiny teases that are not giving away much of the plot. And we kind of discuss that, You know what I mean? To give ideas and think. You know, basically, I've already told Iron that the escape features the return of Visser 1, but I haven't said much of what she's doing on Earth, just that she comes back. You haven't seen her in 10 books.
So what we're doing is basically giving teasers, spoilers. What for
Very
the next books?
Yeah, for mostly the plot of what's coming up, as long as it's not really excessive. And number 16, the warning is, as I said, is known collectively in the Animorphs community as that out-of-date computer book. Those two.
So do I have to give like a little tease?
I'm the one doing that, and we just discuss it. Well, I've also said number 17, the underground features of Yurik's weakness, you know, and number 18, the decision kind of follows up on the events from the escape, but I won't say how.
I'm going to give a spoiler, and I'm going to give a spoiler for. I'll just give a spoiler for 16. They have a lovely airplane ride.
Yeah, and you were very vague. That's good. So in the near future, these kind of books definitely. Yeah, that airplane ride is.
And spoiler for book 42. The journey up Marco's nose.
That's not wrong.
It's a way off yet, but I thought, you know.
Yeah, that's not one of the best ones.
Also, spoiler for book 37. Just don't bother.
Yeah. Well, we are.
Don't bother.
We are completionists, so we're going to do that. Well, while we're on topic, I'm trying to think of any like through points to connect these books in through the teens. I don't know it's
a good run of book. Well, it's a bit more up and down than the first 10. It's still quite consistent. The only one of this stretch of books that I think is bad is book 17.
Yeah, it's not a lot of people like it. I like it, but at the same time, I can totally see why people wouldn't like it. As I said, why don't the Yurks have security cameras in the Yurk pool? Why?
Because they're in the 90s and they're silly.
Yeah. So, Sean, Iron, any other thoughts or feelings about what we've said so far?
Here's one for you, if you can't think of something for that.
Oh yeah, what is it, man?
You're now 14 plus books into the series. Have your opinions on any of the main characters, changed since you started? Like, for example, did you hate Jake at first, but now he's your tippity-toppest favourite? Or did you think Marco had the crappiest jokes ever, but now you think he's prime-time Billy Connolly, you know? How have your thoughts changed?
I've definitely grown to love Tobias even more.
And Axe, he was a complete unknown because he was being repressive to himself due to Andalite customs until number 8, the alien. And now he adores Axe.
Yeah, because I didn't know Axe would become a thing at all. I just thought, oh, just be them. And then here's Axe, he exists.
He has his ups and downs throughout the series. He is a bit of a strange character.
Of course, I always love his feeding frenzies.
Of course, there's something he said in this book, number 14, kind of teases into that. Is wood tasty? Is it good to eat?
And I love when you went, grease and salt. When because someone threw a French fry and he caught it and gobbled it up.
Absolute mad lad.
I love Axe so much.
He is funny.
I remember I saw someone drew a picture and he had a cinnamon bun. He was going cinnamon bunza.
Here's a question, you guys. Which do you think is the best friendship in the book so far? Like, we know that Axe and Tobias are like forming a friendship of convenience, and thanks to the insight in the Andalite Chronicles, we know it's somewhat related, not really. And then there's Jake and Marco and Cassie and Rachel. Who's your favorite friendship?
Jake and Marco. Definitely.
I mean, they engage in versus debates.
I love that too.
They at 1 minute they could be at each other's throats, and then the next minute they're like properly sticking up for each other. They are like proper bros, you know.
Yeah.
You know that they'll rag on each other, they'll yell at each other, call each other bastards, but then the next minute it's like, yeah,
So
we're doing this, you know.
So Aaron, what's your favorite like friendship out of the three that we have? Basically, the one that you think has the best interactions.
I'd probably have to go with Jake and Marco too.
I would probably have to as well.
They bounce off each other well. Cassie's and Rachel's is a bit. It always feels forced sometimes. I'm trying to think actually throughout the whole series. Obviously, not going to give any spoilers away, but does their friendship ever really do much?
Which ones? Cassie and Rachel?
Cassie and Rachel, yeah.
To be fair, neither does Jake and Marco's, but
I think Jake's and Marco's, you can definitely tell that it's genuine and they act like that, like it. But Rachel and Cassie, I don't know, they just never. I'm just thinking about it now. It just felt like we were told that they were best friends and that was it. Food for thought. Anyway, guys, anything else?
trying to think. I don't know.
I don't think I have anything else to say.
Right then, so book 14 or Andalite Chronicles, which was the better one before we finish?
I did enjoy
I vote 14.
Andalite Chronicles more than the other one.
I mean, in number 14, The Unknown's Defense, it's like coming off The Dark Knight into The Dark Knight Rises. Nothing was ever going to compare to that.
So you're both going Andalite Chronicles. Well, I'll be the odd one out then. But my vote counts for 2, so it's a draw technically. Right then, next time it will be 15 or 16.
Yep.
Should be fun. Look forward to it.
Yeah, with our thoughts on the return of Visser 1.
Ooh.
And her super secret Yerk project.
Well, I look forward to that.
Yep.
Everyone dies.
Spoilers, no.
That's major spoilers, sorry. It's just sort of slipped out. All right, guys. Bang, bang, bang.
All right, I hope you enjoyed our little review here, and see you in the next one.
Later.
Ta-ra.